For having me here today, Bob. Thanks for that very kind introduction. Thank you to the Lumen Institute for allowing me to talk, and I came here today to tell a story. It was Friday night, August 24th, 2017. I was at Gallery Furniture with about a dozen fellow staff members. We were going to spend the night there Friday night at Gallery Furniture as we hunkered down in anticipation of Hurricane Harvey. I went to sleep in the Gallery Furniture bedding department. I slept on a Tempur-Pedic. I slept very well that night. And you can still buy one, by the way, right now. If you have to win the World Series, you get your mattress free. Yes, I like to pitch. And woke up Saturday morning, raining cats and dogs, and the feeder road was flooded, so unfortunately, we had to close that day. We've only closed 2 or 3 Saturdays in my entire 37-year career, so that was very difficult to me because a day without cash flow is worse than a day without oxygen. And anyway, at least out there on the north side of Houston, about 2 o'clock that afternoon, the weather cleared up, the clouds parted, the sky was blue, the sun was shining. So I drove around the feeder road. It was now passable, and there were several grocery stores and convenience stores, retailers open, so I decided we'd open at about 4 o'clock. We opened from 4 o'clock to about 10, sold a few mattresses, and I thought the worst was over. I went home to my home, which is right over here off Post Oak in San Felipe. Went to sleep Saturday night. I knew it was raining hard all Saturday night. I didn't think anything of it. I got up about 8 o'clock to drive to Assumption Catholic Church for the 9 o'clock Mass. I got in a little truck, backed out in the street in front of the house, and there was 3 feet of water. I said, well, I guess I'm not going. So I stayed in the house about 11 o'clock. Finally, I got very antsy, decided that I was going to go for it. I got the car and drove down the road through the 2 or 3 feet of water. I got on San Felipe, and there was a lady whose car was flooded, and all these big trucks kept going past her and pushing water in her car. She motioned me to push her car up on the embankment, and I did that. My tailpipes went underneath the water, and I should have floated out right then, but I didn't, and this story would have been very different. I went to Gallery Furniture Post Oak store, and Post Oak was very flooded, but the store has an elevated parking lot. It was okay, no water in the store. So I got on Westheimer and went to 610 to get on 610 to go to the main store. I went over the first overpass there at 610. As I came over the first overpass, the cars were coming the wrong way on the freeway. That's when you know that the shit is in the paint. That, Padre, is the Texas colloquialism. And I called Jeremy, one of our guys who had spent the night before, 2 nights at Gallery Furniture, he'd been there Saturday night. And I said, how do I get there? He said, you can't get off on the feeder road, get off on the entrance ramp, come the wrong way on the feeder road, you might make it. And I made it there to Gallery Furniture at noon. The phone was ringing off the wall. The emails were exploding and the text message went ding, 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 ding. And all the people were calling and text messaging, emailing, saying, please come rescue us, we are going to drown. It wasn't that the police and the firemen and the EMTs and the National Guard had done a bad job. It wasn't they had done a magnificent job. It was, however, this was truly a flood of biblical proportions. We had rented about 24 of these yellow Penske trucks that are 26 feet long bed on them, very high off the ground, and anticipating the worst. So we had these trucks ready to go rescue people. What I didn't anticipate was that all of our employees would be flooded in. So they didn't know what to do. My son James, who runs our digital department, was in Dallas, stuck there with his wife and 3 children. So I asked him what to do. He said, Dad, you got to do a Facebook Live. I said, James, I'm 67 years old. I've never done a Facebook Live. So Jeremy coached me through a Facebook Live, him and James did, and I announced that Gallery Furniture North Freeway would be open as a shelter for people to get out of the storm, and Gallery Furniture on Grand Parkway in Richmond, Texas would be open as a shelter for people to get people out of the storm. And I also announced that if they were in the neighborhood and they needed to be picked up and rescued from the neighborhood, to call us, text message, or email, we'd come get them. I did that Facebook Live post with an hour and a half, and had 4.5 million views. And I also announced we were looking for people with CDLs to come in and show us their driver's license. We'd give them a truck 2 at a time so they could go out and rescue people. See, we have a sign right in front of Gallery Furniture that says the American West was not settled by men and women who had taken a course on how to be a pioneer. It was a time to lead. And the people came in and we gave them the trucks. And then went out and rescued those people on overpasses in the driving rain. And they rescued them in convenience stores where they had taken shelter from the storm. And they rescued them in neighborhoods as the people in the boats brought them to the truck and unloaded them in the boat. And we had to load them in the back of that truck, 8 or 10 or 12 at a time like cattle. There was no other way to transport them. And the people came in. They were soaked in nasty, dirty water. They were shell-shocked, and they had their life's belongings in a black plastic trash bag. And this one group of brothers, they went out and got 2 groups of people. About 8 o'clock, it was still very hot, very humid, and raining heavily, 8 p.m. And they had to go get some people off I-10 in Wallaceville. The Northeast Houston Police Station at I-10 in Wallaceville had 50 officers out on patrol. And while those 50 officers were out on patrol, all 50 of their cars were totally submerged. So I sent these guys out to rescue these other people. And about 10 o'clock that night, after it got dark, it was still very hot and humid and raining, I got a call on my cell phone from this woman. She said, I was talking to my husband on his cell phone. He was in the back of one of your trucks. And all of a sudden, everybody in that truck started screaming because water was coming in the back of the truck, and then his cell phone cut off. And I thought, my God, we've drowned 10 people. So I called Anthony, who's one of our warehouse managers. He's 6'8" tall. Anthony is an operator. That means an operator is a person who gets things done. And I called Junior, another kid, and he's 5 foot tall. Junior's worked for us since he was 8 years old. And I told them they were going to go out there and try to find this truck. We knew where it was from the GPS system, but we just couldn't talk to anybody. Try to find this truck. So they headed out. Anthony, 6'8", Junior, 5 foot tall, as the odd couple to go rescue these people. Normally to get from Gallery Furniture I-10 to Wallaceville would take about 15 minutes. It took them 2.5 hours because all the Google Maps streets were black, which means impassable. They tried to get off the exit of the freeway to get to where this place was, and the Cajun Navy was launching boats off the exit ramp. Very dangerously, they wound through this neighborhood with all these creeks in it. And finally, the water got up to the windshield on that giant Penske truck, and they had to stop the truck. They stopped the convenience store, and the weight from the water was so strong, it took the convenience store's ice machine and just floated it away. Anthony got out to try to find the truck. He knew where it was on the GPS system. The water was over Junior's head, so he couldn't do it. So Anthony's very carefully wading through the water. The street lights were still visible almost. The water was still 3 or 4 feet below them. He's wading through the muddy water, being very careful for undulations and curves he might trip over. And he finally gets to the truck and there's nobody there. Now he's really panicked. Throwing caution to the wind, he starts trying to run as fast as he can through the water to get back to Junior and try to find these people. And as he's running through the water, he promptly steps in a manhole. And the vortex of water sucks him in. He's heading to Galveston Bay. Instinctively, he sticks out his very long 6'8" arm, catches himself, bites his way up, gets a breath of air, the water sucks him in again. And he had shorts on, he puts his legs out against the concrete, rips all the skin off both of his legs, and finally fought his way out of that manhole. Went through the dirty water, back and found Junior, and they decided they'd try again to find these people. All this time, Anthony's wife, to be in a month at Gallery Furniture with me, and she's frantically calling his cell phone every minute, and of course he's not answering, and she now has a premonition that he too is dead. And it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. And the tension out there is so thick you could cut it with a knife. And Anthony and Junior go find this lady. She was on a peninsula and she had a truck and a boat launch on the back. And they asked her, do you know where those people were in that truck? She said, yeah, my husband picked them up and took them to Georgia or Brown. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, it's still raining hot and heavy out there on the North Freeway. Very hot and humid outside, but inside we've got the air conditioning cranked down to about 60 degrees because there's 250 people sleeping there. And they had these heavy furniture blankets they were using as blankets. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, the door opened, there's a little Hispanic girl about 4 foot tall with her parents and another guy who I think was her uncle. And they're all 4 wet like they've been swimming and they've actually waded up a feet of road in 3 feet of water. And this little girl is hot, totally immersed in water, wet, crying, terrified, traumatized. And she walks in that furniture store, and now, in addition to all that, she's freezing, and her little mouth, her teeth are chattering. She's the only one out of the 4 that speaks a word of English, and she walks up to me and she says, can we stay here tonight? And I have heard my people cry. And they stayed there. One great big menacing looking guy kept wandering around all night. He was obviously traumatized by this ordeal. And we thought he was going to do something strange with all these people sleeping everywhere. He finally came up and asked one of the guys where the trash bags were. They told him where the trash bags were. He started emptying trash, and his countenance changed from totally upset to happy. And somebody asked him why they changed your attitude. He said, all my life, all I've ever wanted to do is help people. He said, I've helped people, so now I can help. And isn't that why we were put on this earth, to help people? And over the next several days, all these reporters came out there from the New York Times, and CNN, and CBS, ABC, and NBC, and BBC, and you name it, they were all there. And they all asked the same question. They said, how could you possibly let these total strangers, you didn't even get their name or their social security number or their driver's license number, how could you possibly let these total strangers sleep on your fancy mattresses and sofas and sleep in your recliners and eat off your dining room table and take over this furniture store and go without cash flow for 4 days? How could you possibly do that? My answer was, how could I not? My beloved parents, my beloved brother George are all deceased. When all this happened, they were looking down there at me and said, what are you going to do? I did what they wanted me to do, what they would have expected to do, what I was taught to do. We opened the door. And for the next several weeks, we had people lined up 8 or 10 hours a day in that hot, blistering sun in Texas in August and early September, getting cleaning supplies and water and diapers and all these sort of things. And several of the volunteers meant well when they'd come to me and say, this guy's been in line every day. I said, well, for him to wait in that hot sun for 4 or 5 hours every day to get $20 worth of cleaning supplies, he must need it. And so it was quite the ordeal. And the most often question was, what are you going to do with all those mattresses the people slept on? I said, what the heck do you think I'm going to do with them? I'm going to have a sale and sell them. We had about 1,200 people sleep over the 3 nights, 400 times 3. Out of those 1,200, only 3 of them peed on a mattress. That's not bad. Less than the national hotel average, I am told. And so, we did what I was taught to do by my Catholic upbringing, by my parents, by my beloved brother. We did the right thing. There was nothing heroic about it. The heroic people were the firefighters and the policemen and the EMTs that risked their lives to save hundreds of Houstonians and Texans. One diver I know, he rescued 35 people. Another group were in the helicopter up off Cypress Creek in North Houston, in the DPS helicopter at 2 o'clock at night with the heat-seeking radar, and they found the guy in a tree at 2 in the morning, 35 feet above the ground, the water lapping at him, and they lowered that bucket down and got him out. His 2 friends drowned. 2 weeks after Hurricane Harvey, it was a Sunday afternoon, about 1 o'clock. And the store was very busy, and this woman walked in, and she had a Mormon Tabernacle Church vest on. She said, "Can I bring Gift Nielsen and some Mormon leaders by to see you in about a half an hour?" And I said, "Sure." Gift Nielsen, you remember, played football for BYU, he played football for the Houston Oilers, and he was a CBS affiliate broadcaster here sports for 20 years in the Houston market. About a half hour later, they come out, about 15 of them, men and women, including one of the 11 elders of the entire Mormon church. And I asked them how many volunteers did they have on the ground from out of town to help people in Houston. He said within 10 days we had 6,000 volunteers. One neighbor up in North Houston had one Mormon out of the 500 homes. All 500 homes got 3 or 4 feet of water in it. They cleaned out his home, they mucked it out, and they fed the entire neighborhood there for 6 weeks, and they mucked out and cleaned out every house. I gave this speech to a bunch of rich people in California about 6 weeks ago, and one woman said, "Well, it's easy for them to do. They're Mormons, they were raised that way. Why can't we all be raised that way?" I was Catholic, I was raised that way. I am Catholic. It's not a matter of saying you're a Christian, it's a matter of acting like you're not. And so, Hurricane Harvey, as you're well aware, was the worst of times for Houston. Enough rain fell in our area to fuel Niagara Falls for 21 days. Over 70 inches of rain in certain areas. 1 out of every 5 cars in Harris County was totaled. Hundreds of thousands of homes had 4 to 6 feet of dirty water in them. It was the worst of times. But it was also the best of times, because for one brief moment in time we all came together in Houston, in Texas, and indeed from around the country, and we forgot about right-wing politics or left-wing politics, and all we cared about was people. It didn't matter their color, their skin, their ethnicity, or their religion. We cared about people. We had one rapper. His name is Trey the Truth. He's from Houston. I wouldn't know who Trey the Truth is in 1,000 years, but I do now. Trey the Truth brought us 20 52-foot tractors full of water at about 20,000 a pop. We had people bring things from New York, from California, from Ohio, from Pennsylvania, from all across the country, and the outpouring was unbelievable. The Salvation Army was on site starting day 2 as we gave away those cleaning supplies and food and clothing. There were 3 people in the Salvation Army van where they distributed supplies. The youngest had her 84th birthday there at Gallery Curtis that week. She was the youngest. They've been to every natural disaster in the United States for the last 50 years, these 3 people, and they said they'd never seen a group as resilient, as helpful as Texans. And one of those reporters from the New York Times said to me, she said, "What type of people are you?" And I quoted her from Winston Churchill, "What type of people do they think we are? We are Christians and we are Texans, and we help each other." And that's why we're here. As Bob said a while ago, it's time to quit compartmentalizing our faith. It's time to lead from the front. I put my religion and my values out there every day. And you know what? before that hurricane, not a millennial and 100 miles knew where I was. Now, because they see me as real, genuine, and caring, I can't go buy Starbucks coffee anywhere in this town when I'm done paying for it. I went through the damn drive-thru the other day and they heard me pay for it. So it's about doing the right thing. It's about teaching people that this is the desired behavior. The desired behavior is not about money. The desired behavior is about making a difference. The desired behavior is about teaching these young people how to act. The desired behavior is about living a legacy, and it's not the Kardashians. So I've been invited to do lots of speeches since Hurricane Harvey. I was asked to give a speech at the Michael DeBakey VA Hospital in the Texas Medical Center. Dr. DeBakey is one of my all-time heroes. He led a life built for others. He changed the world forever. Dr. DeBakey was scheduled to do a heart surgery with my friend Bud Frazier down at the medical center on his 100th birthday. He died when he was 99 years and 10 months old. So I walked in that hospital, and there's Dr. DeBakey's picture right there like he's in person. I had no idea what the four chaplains group was, but they were going to give me awards, so I went down there. And I heard the story of the four chaplains, and I thought I'd share it with you today at lunch. The story. It was the evening of February 2nd, 1943. United States Army Transport Dorchester was brought into capacity, carrying 902 servicemen, merchant seamen, and civilian workers. Once a luxury coastal liner, the 5,649-ton vessel had been converted into an Army transport ship. The Dorchester, one of three ships in the SG-19 convoy, was moving steadily across the icy waters from Newfoundland toward an American base in Greenland. SG-19 was escorted by Coast Guard cutters Tampa, Ensenada, and Comanche. Hans J. Danielson, the ship's captain, was concerned and cautious. Earlier, the Tampa had detected a submarine with his sonar. Danielson knew he was in dangerous waters even before he got the alarming information. German U-boats were constantly prowling these vital sea lanes, and several ships had already been blasted and sunk. The Dorchester was now only 150 miles from its destination. But the captain ordered the men to sleep in their clothing and keep their life jackets on. Many soldiers sleeping deep in the ship's hold disregarded the order because of the engine's heat. Others ignored it because the ship's life jackets were very, very uncomfortable. On February 3rd, at 12:55 a.m., a periscope broke through the icy, chilly Atlantic waters. Through the crosshairs, an officer aboard the German submarine U-223 spotted the Dorchester. The U-223 approached the convoy on the surface, and after identifying and targeting the ship, he gave orders to fire the torpedoes, and a fan of 3 were fired. The one that hit was decisive and deadly, striking the starboard side, amidship far below the waterline. Captain Danielson, alerted that the Dorchester was taking water rapidly and sinking, gave the order to abandon ship. In less than 20 minutes, the Dorchester was slid beneath the Atlantic icy waters. Tragically, the hit had knocked out power and radio contact with the 3 escort ships. The CGC Comanche, however, saw the flash of the explosion. It responded and then rescued 97 survivors. The Coast Guard cutter Ensenada circled the Dorchester, rescuing an additional 132 survivors. The third cutter, Tampa, continued on, escorting the remaining 2 ships. Aboard the Dorchester, panic and chaos had set in. The blast had killed scores of men, and many more were seriously wounded. Others, stunned by the explosion, were groping in the darkness. Those sleeping without clothing rushed topside, where they were confronted first by a blast of icy Arctic air, and then by the knowledge that death awaited. Men jumped from the ship into lifeboats, overcrowding them to the point of capsizing, according to eyewitnesses. Other rafts tossed into the Atlantic drifted away before soldiers could get into them. Through the pandemonium, according to those present, 4 army chaplains brought hope in despair and light in darkness, like Lumen. Those chaplains were Lieutenant George L. Fox, Methodist; Lieutenant Alexander D. Good, Jewish; Lieutenant John P. Washington, Roman Catholic; and Lieutenant Clark Poling, Dutch Reformed. Quickly and quietly, the 4 chaplains spread out among the soldiers. There they tried to calm the frightened and the wounded and guide the disoriented towards safety. Witnesses of that terrible night remember hearing the 4 men offer prayers for the dying and encouragement for those who would live, said Wyatt Fox, son of Reverend Fox. One witness, Private William B. Bender, found himself floating in oil-smeared water, surrounded by dead bodies and debris. I could hear men crying, pleading, crying, Bender recalls. I could also hear the chaplains preaching courage. Their voices were the only thing that kept me going. Another sailor, Petty Officer John J. Mahoney, tried to re-enter his cabin, but Rabbi Good stopped him. Mahoney, concerned about the cold Arctic air, explained he had forgotten his gloves. Never mind, Good responded, I have 2 pairs. The rabbi then gave the petty officer his own gloves. In retrospect, Mahoney realized that Rabbi Good was not conveniently carrying 2 pairs of gloves, and the rabbi had decided not to leave the Dorchester. By this time, most of the men were topside, and the chaplains opened a storage locker and began distributing life jackets. It was then that engineer Grady Clark witnessed an astonishing sight. When there were no more life jackets in the storage room, the chaplains removed theirs and gave them to 4 frightened young men. It was the finest thing I have seen or hope to see this side of heaven, said John Ladd, another survivor who saw the chaplain's selfless act. Ladd's response is understandable. The altruistic action of the 4 chaplains constitutes one of the purest spiritual acts and ethical acts a person can make. When given their life jackets out, Rabbi Good did not call out for a Jew. Father Washington did not call out for a Catholic. Nor did Reverends Fox and Poland call out for a Protestant. They simply gave their life jackets to the next man in line. As the ship went down, survivors in nearby rafts could see the 4 chaplains, arms linked, kneeling and braced against the slanting deck. Their voices could also be heard offering prayers. Of the 902 men above the U.S. Army Transport Dorchester, 672 died, leaving 230 survivors. When the news reached American shores, the nation was stunned by the magnitude of this tragedy and heroic conduct of the 4 chaplains. Valor is a gift. Valor is a gift, Carl Sandburg once said. Those having it never know for sure whether they have it until the test comes. The test came to Houston and to Texas 24, 25, 26 August. Because we're Texans and because we are Christians, we passed the test. Thanks very much.